And good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of PaintCast. My name is Ashton, the painter here at Red Modeling Paint Studios, the man behind the brush. Welcome to the show tonight, guys. Glad to have you here. We're just doing a little bit of impromptu PaintCast tonight, so I'm going to be working on Signar Charger that you see here, and I'm also going to be hopefully working on wrapping up Asphyxious. With the Charger, basically what I'm going to be doing tonight is just wrapping up the details. As far as details left to pick out, we're just going to be adding some highlights to the rivets on the shoulders here, some washes in some places, some silver accents in some places, and picking out some rivets and attaching the arm here. As well, on the arm there is just a few details that I need to finish up on that. So I'm going to just get to work here, guys, and mumble to myself a little bit as I'm painting and talk about things as I'm doing it. And if you have any questions, feel free to pop them up in the chat. I don't have any guest on air with me tonight, so I can be a little more flexible with that. And we'll just have a good time, sit here and paint for a couple hours. So wherever you are, I hope you're working on something, and I hope you're having a good time. So with that, I'm just going to get to work here on finishing this guy up and finish up these rivets that I got here going on. The way I do rivets when I'm doing a tabletop quality paint job like this is on this guy the rivets are gold, and I start with a base of P3 Umbral Umber, go around, hit all the rivets with that, and then I'll take the Scale 75 Dwarven Gold, I think is what it's called, Dwarven Gold. It's called, yes, Dwarven Gold, Scale 75 Dwarven Gold. I'll take that, and that will get placed on top of the brown, much like you see here, so it leaves a nice shadow behind, but also identifies the gold rivet as well. So just going to be kind of working on that for a minute here. Thursday night, it's Tuesday night tonight. Thursday night I'm going to be doing a PaintCast. Probably still waiting to hear back from a couple people who, or the clients that I had scheduled for this Thursday night. And the plan is to maybe do a little bit of Wrath of Kings and definitely work on some more of the Retribution that I was working on last week, and also some of the Cricks as well. So got some good stuff coming up. I'm kind of excited about the Wrath of Kings because those are some minis that I really haven't seen showcased too much yet. Granted, I'm not following that game as close as I am some other ones, so that might be part of the reason why. But I've got the minis assembled and ready to go for paint, and I got to tell you guys, there's some cool looking minis. If you're into just painting figures, that's a couple of those are probably not that bad of an idea for you to pick up, because they got some good detail on them, they've got some cool poses on them, and some really cool painting possibilities with them. So again, what I'm just working on here is just getting these rivets a little bit of a shade color put on them there. I'll finish these details tonight for JT, and then this mini is going to be packed up and or based and then packed up and sent back to him. The basing is just going to be real simple on this JT. We didn't talk a lot about what we were going to do with that, but I do remember, you saying, like the simple grassland gravel type bases. So So he'll get that treatment, and once all that's dry and set, we'll get it sent off to you. Okay, I'm going to let some of that paint dry for a minute. And move on to some of these silver details, like the screw here. This area, JT, we're going to wash with some P3 Armor Wash once it dries. And so you don't have to worry too much about getting a clean, solid base coat on this, because a lot of it's going to be washed, and that wash is just going to go in those crevices there, and you'll never really see it again after that. So, all right, I don't think there's any other silver spots that I need to hit on here. Things looking pretty good. I do want to mix up some of our black color, JT, and put it right here under these knee plates. The reason being is just like we did on the back there of those legs, we're just kind of filling in some of those spots on other parts as we're coming across them, because it looks odd just kind of keeping it as an open solid color. I think it lends to a more finished look when you have these areas darkened down. And just be careful as you apply this on to not get too much onto your gold there, and not to go too far up the thigh, because you just want to create that illusion of shadow and depth and a dark color to cover that rather vague and obscure detail. Do it on the back of this plate here too. Underside of the bottom plate, underside of the top plate there. And you can see the effect that creates. It's pretty cool. Move on to the other knee plate now. Okay. And from the back here. Right. Looks okay. Let's get these. Oh, there's one other thing I just realized right there. I want to hit real quick. The bar across the top there. My guess is for the purposes of maintenance hatch or something like that. Now something you can do here, JT, too, is if you look at that maintenance hatch, you've got that piece of blue underneath it. So it makes it look like the armor plate has a little bit of a bump right there under the maintenance hatch. What you can do, take the black color that you mixed up, which is again the 50-50 mix of umbral umber and full black, and then with a very fine point brush, very carefully get in there, fill that detail, and there you go. Same thing on the back side. There you go. That cleans it up a little better. Okay, let's see where we're at now. We were going to do the gold rivets before I hopped back on that part. So we'll get this paint mixed up here. It's the scale 75 Dwarven Gold. That's what we're using. And what you're looking to do here, JT, as I was explaining last week a little bit, is you want to apply the gold, dot, if you will, on the rivet, just on the tip of the rivet, so that you're leaving some of the brown underneath to show through on the sides. It kind of creates a hard black line effect, adds a little bit of shadow, a little bit of depth. One's on the inside here. And if you were going for more dramatic highlights in shadows, you know, something with a little more contrast to it, you know, these inner rivets probably wouldn't do in a gold. You'd probably do them in a, or at least in this bright of a gold, you'd probably want to do like something equivalent to like a blighted gold or something like that. Something a little darker, something a little more muted, just to give that depth of, you know, that illusion of depth and that illusion of shadow, and it being further away from you than closer to you. Okay. This one here is a little harder to get. Another quick layer of gold there, actually. Smooth that out a little more. Wasn't quite even. And we'll just keep working around here. Okay, that's all those rivets there. Let's get ourselves some armor wash here, P3 armor wash. And this is what we're going to use to wash into some of the cracks and crevices of some of these screw heads here. You're going to want to put a fairly liberal amount. You can, with washes that are real thin like this, you can always pull extra off if you need to. Just getting that in there. Same on these little ones down here. See the difference that makes in the way that looks. Also going to add a little bit of a wash to this hoisting mount on the side here. bit more in here around some of these shadows just to darken things up just a little bit more. Same there on the foot a little bit. Drop a little bit in here where the exhaust stack is. I'm also going to add a little bit on these vents. Probably come back to with some brown wash, some brown ink. Clean that or darken those up a little bit more, warm them up just a little bit more. Same around here. And then finally that little hoist there. What's nice about this P3 Armor Wash JT is you can hit your larger areas, you know, with the two brush blending like I've demonstrated here. And then sometimes it can be a little tedious to do all the two brush blending on small little tiny areas like all that, so you can just use the wash real quick, touch some areas up, and you know, you get a nice decent, you know, result out of it. Close enough for government work, as they would say, right? Alright, so I'm going to set this aside for a second. Grab a drink of water there. And we're going to do some shading real quick on the hammer here. Again, I'm mixing up same black color that we've used all along, the 50-50 mix of Umbral Umber and Coal Black. That's the color that we've been using to shade these metals with. And two brush blend this, so application brush and a mixing brush. And I'm just two brush blending. I love having guests on the show with me when I do this. I love having the clients on the show with me. I mean, that's the whole premise of what makes, you know, this process unique. But when I'm able to just sit here and work like this, I think I can work a lot quicker. I don't have to explain as I'm going. That's not a slight to any of my guests that I've had on or will have on. I absolutely love having you guys on. It's just simply an observation at this point. which is to be, fairly reasonable to understand. I mean, I am producing, teaching, talking, and painting all at the same time. It can be a little difficult. Okay, we'll add some highlights in there to pick some of those details out. I actually think I'd like to maybe just take this down just a little bit further on the hammer with some straight black on there. I think it's just got a lot of metal going on that hammer, and I think adding the black will just give a little more contrast. Drolath is asking in the chat if my Star Destroyer has arrived yet. Let me tell the story for those of you who will end up catching this on YouTube later, what he's talking about. To answer the question specifically, yes, it has shown up. For those of you who don't know a lot of my background that I've shared in previous podcasts or through Facebook or whatnot, I started out painting and converting as a model builder many years ago. I built my first plastic model, when I was maybe 10 or 11 years old. It was a Revell 148 scale B-17 bomber, and man, I loved that. That was the first real model I'd ever built, and I loved the experience. And so the next 10 years of my life, that's all I did was build model cars, model planes, model tanks, just anything I could get my hands on. I loved it. And I was around 22, 23 years old, and living in Arizona. And I'd always kind of liked, hobby shops and stuff like that. Game shops too. I played a little D&D, growing up and stuff. So, I'd always seen these small figurines, but never really painted any. And a new hobby shop opened up down the street from where I lived, and so I go in to check it out. And what are they selling? As their number one, item off the shelf that they're pushing is Space Marines 40K, and I was hooked. You mean I can build these models and then play with them? And so it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen up to that point as far as modeling goes. So it was a box set that you could buy at the time. It came with I think a couple squads of Space Marines, a Devastator squad, a Command squad, and like one or two Rhinos. I can't even remember. So I start painting these guys up in like a military green color with some red accents, and they just looked horrid, and didn't even know how to paint a miniature, and it was a pretty steep learning curve for me. But then, as the years got by, I started getting a little better, and it probably wasn't until about, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago now, that I started really getting serious about doing this, miniature painting. As far as trying to really incorporate the techniques that I had learned from building models into, miniatures. And so, anyway, the long story short is, coming back around to the Star Destroyer thing, is I still have a passion for building models. I've got, at any given time, probably 4 or 5 model kits sitting in my storage cabinet that I'm working on. I really love building models, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan on top of that. And the only about 3 years ago, maybe a little longer, a company called Fine Molds out of Japan started making Star Wars models. And what was really cool about the models that they were producing is they were entirely based on the original models used in the movie. They weren't, an artist interpretation of them, or they weren't, changed for ease of manufacture. I mean, they replicated the parts that were used and everything, and so they were some very high quality model kits. And so I picked a few of them up, and I've built a few, and several times actually, over the course of years. I've built them multiple times. They're great little kits, and no company, including this company Fine Molds at the time, had ever produced a nice looking, accurate Star Destroyer model kit, which is odd because it's the Star Destroyer is one of the most iconic Star Wars vehicles and recognizable Star Wars vehicles around, and the fact that no one was producing one of these was, or at least a quality one, was mind-boggling to a lot of us people in the hobby. And anyway, along comes a Chinese guy. He owns a company called Anagram out of China, and he, admittedly illegally, because he didn't have the rights to produce this kit, produced a 24-inch Star Destroyer model kit. Actually, it's closer to 26 inches, based on the Star Destroyer Avenger that appears in The Empire Strikes Back. It's the one that's chasing Han and Leia and Chewie through the asteroid field. And anyway, he probably ends up producing it for about 6-7 months maybe. The model kit, including shipping from China, was only a couple $100. I mean, he was selling it at a ridiculously low price, and it was gorgeous. It was amazing looking, and I kept saying to myself, "Oh, I'll get one later. I'll get one later. I'll get one later," and I never ended up buying one because of the cease and desist. He'd stopped producing them, and so I was never able to get one. Consequently, because of that, the price for these model kits, you can still find them on eBay every now and then, has skyrocketed to, I think the most expensive one I saw on eBay at one point was almost $700, which is ridiculous. That's just way too much for a model kit. And so, I kind of regretted over the years that I didn't pick one up when I had a chance. And here, a couple months ago, a friend of mine who builds models quite a bit had at the time purchased 2 of them, and he made me an incredible offer, gave me an incredible deal on picking up one of the original kits. So I went ahead and did it, bit the bullet, paid for it. Unfortunately, not the $200, but nowhere near the $700 that they're going for on eBay. And anyway, just really excited that the model kit is now in my possession, and I also have a lighting kit for it as well. I think there's something like 3,000 fiber optic lights that are put on the kit. So that's going to be a fun process, drilling all those holes. But it's really going to be cool. I'm looking forward to this build. It's going to take a while, though. I haven't even started it yet. Honestly, probably won't even start it until closer to the end of the year anyway, just with everything that I have going on. Also want to finish my Millennium Falcon model kit that I've been working on for a while too. So I do have it. I'm very excited to have it. It looks amazing. I'll probably get some pictures up here one day on my Facebook page, and have a dedicated album for it or something. But the quality of the resin casting is superb. The detailing is fantastic. The parts, while not 100% studio accurate, certainly better than anything I could build from scratch, or anything that's available out there as a model kit right now. So it's a good time for me right now. I'm excited to have that kit sitting there. So that was a good story to burn a 15 minutes or so here, huh? Thanks for that. Good question. Maybe I'll even do a paint cast on it at one point too. That might be kind of interesting. In fact, just kind of as a side note, I've seen, on the forums and stuff, when people pick up some of these colossals or some of these battle engines, and they're complaining about all the work that they have to do to prep a resin model. I've chuckled when I've read some of these statements because, as a model builder, I've built many kits out of resin, and let me tell you, the stuff that P3 is producing, Privateer Press is producing in their resin kits, is far superior to other things that I've built. So I'm grateful for the quality of these kits. Granted, there's been some pretty shady stuff, but that's going to happen in any manufacturing process. So I'm excited for them. I think they're great. Yeah, Drolath, the last trailer for the Star Wars was fantastic. I have not, and I think I even mentioned this before on a previous PaintCast, I have not been that emotionally affected by a trailer for a movie since probably the original Lord of the Rings came out, back in 2002 or whatever it was. And even then, how I felt seeing Han and Chewie sitting there in the Millennium Falcon and talking right there at the end was amazing. It was just really cool to see that and kind of have that flood of memories come back from when I was a kid. Very cool. Okay, this hammer is just about done. I'm just adding a couple of little edge highlights here. Highlights on the rivets there. And those are almost dry. But let me get these tiny rivets here with the gold. Okay, that arm is done. I'm calling that done. And the last thing that I need to do is just a quick wash here. Okay. All right, I'm not going to mount this arm right now because it's still, the paint's still fresh, so I don't want to mar any of it. I do want to add, though, just a little bit of black around this inner edge here. This isn't the black JT, this is the mixture of coal black and umber. I'm just adding it a little bit around this inside edge here, just so that when it does get mounted, this recessed detail is darkened already, so that it will have the same effect as some of the other parts that we've done. So there you go, JT. The charger is done, and I'm going to get this based and out to you in the mail hopefully by Saturday. So. And this video should be up by tomorrow night, up on YouTube for you to watch. I'll email you tonight and let you know kind of where I finished off with this, and we can go from there. So it's been a pleasure working with you, man, and make sure and take advantage of the Google Chat Hangout with me post-production, so that way if you have any questions once you get the mini back in your hands and you get the paint recipes back in your hands, we can go over those with you. So you guys in chat, just hang out for about 30 seconds. I'm just going to do a quick screen change so that I can move on to my next project. Since my PaintCast gets recorded as one entire block, I add these quick screen changes in to let me know when I go to edit them where I need to break them up at. So give me about 30 seconds, guys. I'll be right back.